We're going to open up with opening remarks from the candidates, and they will all have 2 minutes to respond.
2-minute opening remark. My name is Jorge Mujica, and quite frankly, I'm not going to tell you who I am. That you can Google. I want to tell you what I do. Today, 2 hours ago, the Golan Moving and Storage Strikers finally settled, and they are lifting the strike because they signed a collective bargaining agreement. I organized them. Proudly, I organized the workers. I took them to Teamsters 705. They went for 7 months on a strike, which I organized, and I staffed that strike, and I was there at 4 o'clock and 5 o'clock and 6 o'clock in the morning, and today they settled. They get between 25 and 57 increase in their salaries. They get overtime, which they didn't get before. They get transportation time paid. They get, I don't know, but this is big news. That's what I do day to day. I am a worker organizer, and if you, as an association, work on sweatshops abroad, I work on the sweatshops here in this city of Chicago. That's what I do. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Roberto Montaño. It's nice to be home. I remember when we painted this place. I've been here in this neighborhood for a long time.
The first time, because these are new murals.
No, yo estaba aquí, no es cierto. That's not true. That's not true. And I have pictures of the original paintings. But anyway, I'm from Pilsen. I've been in Pilsen all my life. I'm 41. And I've been in Pilsen all of that time, except for when I was in the Army. I was in the Army for 8 years. I served my country. Very proud of that. I was a medic, and our mission was to heal the warrior. A lot of the skills that I picked up here at the UIC operating room, I used working abroad. I was stationed in Hohenfels, Germany. I was there during the Kosovo exchange. The externalities of what happens in government are often hidden, whether it be just yesterday I was at a rally and we were talking about mental health. I also served on the board of Healthcare Alternative Systems, the largest provider of Latino mental health services in the Chicagoland area. So I'm a nurse. I have a degree in nursing, psychology, economics. I have an MBA, halfway through law school, and I'm a CFP candidate at Northwestern right now. I believe in education, investment in human capital, healthcare, education. This is my priority. From a platform perspective, I'm fully funding pre-K, or I'm not going to claim that we have pre-K. And I think my time is up, so I'll just wrap up in saying I work for the incumbent. I know a lot about city government. I also work for Congressman Gutierrez. And whether it be military service or financial service, which is my job now, or public service, my mission is to be a servant. Thank you.
My name's Ed Hershey. I'm a teacher at Lindblom High School. I have a few of my students here tonight. And I've been a teacher for 9 years in CPS. I've been very active at the union in my school. I've helped organize my school. I've helped organize students in the Southwest side on citywide issues, on school closings. I've lived in Pilsen for 6 years. I've been active in the community there. I've been involved with Pero. I stood with the Whittier mothers when they were defending La Casita. I got arrested there a year and a half ago when that happened. So I've been, as a teacher, part of why I'm running, Karen Lewis was running for mayor, and I thought that was a real opportunity because working people would pay attention in this election, because somebody who led the biggest fight we've seen in this city in the past 10 years was going to stand for election. That meant people had the opportunity to vote for a fight. And so I'm standing in this election to say working people need to fight. That's the only way we're going to get what we need in the schools, to reopen the mental health clinics that were closed, to get city services that are funded, that there is money. The banks are getting their money every year. At the same time, they're taking the money out of the schools. They say we're taking $60 million out of the classroom just recently, and they did not cut out of the interest payments to the bank. So I think we need a working class fight. That's what I'm running for.
Good evening, everyone. Buenas noches. My name is Byron Sigcho. I'm an immigrant, an activist, a teacher, and a community member. I've been at UIC. I'm glad to see some of the students that who I organized with. Was former president of the Graduate Student Council here at UIC. We organized the students, when the students were and helped, in solidarity with many things. So just little. My little contribution was just to be in solidarity and to be part of the student government for several years. We were here, working and creating a coalition of students, faculty, community members, and students who we are trying to gather now, the involvement, the partnership between UIC and the community at large. Also, I'm a local school council member, and my local school council, Youngman is being defunded. They lost $500,000 this year. So that's why I'm here, because we see what's happened to our schools. During the school closings, I was with a community organization, the Pilsen Alliance. I'm very glad to be here and see parents in the room who were there fighting for their schools. Some parents that when the school was demolished, we were in solidarity with a lot of the parents. What I do, I'm a teacher at UIC, a literacy teacher. What we do is create opportunities. We have Head Start. I work with Head Start parents, make sure that our parents are supporting their families. I don't do that because I get paid. All the work that we do is because I like to help my community, and we like to be making sure that we create an inclusive community where we bring everybody on the table. And that's what I've been doing for the past 5 years at least, making sure that we include everybody, parents, teachers, workers, everybody. This is about community. And that's what I'm here tonight. I'm glad we're here at UIC. Is very, very glad to be back.
Thank you to all the candidates. And for everyone coming in, we may not have some seats, but please feel free to stand on the sides. And now we're going to start moving on to the first set of questions.
The first question will be for Jorge. In Chicago, in Chicago, an adult with one child needs to make $20.86 an hour working full-time just to afford basic needs. Following a growing movement of low-wage workers and community members, the Chicago City Council recently voted to raise the minimum wage to $13 per hour by 2019. For many families across the city, this is not enough. What would you do as alderman to support low-wage workers?
Many things. For one thing, I still insist that we need $15 an hour now, not $13 an hour in 2019, which are the equivalent of a 75-cent increase if you calculate the rate of inflation. But that's not only. Minimum wages and many other wages get stolen, $1.1 million every day in Cook County, every day. And they are stolen from the lowest earners, obviously. So we need to guarantee that whatever the minimum wage is, it gets paid fully. Not cheating with the overtime, not cheating with any kind of excuses. There are 14 ways to steal wages, and that's one of the things I dedicate myself to doing. Last year, I recovered $750,000 in stolen wages through a rights gather. So we need that. We need to eliminate the exceptions, because workers with disabilities are exempt from minimum wage, because domestic workers are exempt from minimum wage, because if you are working with less than 4 workers, in a company, less than 4 workers, then you are not entitled to minimum wage. So I think we have to eliminate and do away with all those exceptions so everybody receives, at the very least, minimum wage and at least $15 an hour minimum wage. Last thing, it's not set on stone, but we also contributed, since last year, we also contributed to the Cook County issuing a new ordinance next week, pay attention, on Tuesday, which is going to deny funding and tax exemptions to companies that don't have a clean bill of wages health. Just an update. Pay attention to that. And
What was Roberto next?
So I agree with pretty much everything that my colleague here said, and I agree with it for different reasons. It's just good economics. It's obviously the moral thing to do, the courageous thing to do as a community. There's a great Senator Paul Wellstone who said that we all do better when we all do better. And you know, there's dignity as a community that we share. And if we don't pay our most vulnerable people a dignified wage, then that reflects on us. But there's three economics points that I want to make as the guy who works in finance. There's a theory called the reservation wage in economics, and if you don't give at least a minimum level of threshold of compensation, it just doesn't make sense for the worker, and you have to overcome that threshold. Number two, and that's about 12, but I'm for the 15th today, just for the record. And the reason for that is the poor need that. And the poor are going to spend it. They're not going to buy a bunch of stuff, right? They're going to buy a pair of shoes. And that helps the shoemaker. You know, they're going to help. I mean, just think of the money that you may have saved recently if you drive with the gas. You didn't boost up your savings that often. We're all struggling. So we all do better when we all do better. The poor will spend that to stimulate the economy. And lastly, like most of my colleagues here, I think we're worried about small businesses too. But not one that I've talked to has told me it's a problem. Every single one is all for it, right? And the reason for that is because they know that the people are worth it. We know that people are worth it. Now, I feel bad because he's not here to defend himself, but the incumbent alderman, who has a 100% voting record with the mayor, would rather you got the tiniest itty-bitty increment. I say 15 today, and anything less than that is a slap in the face of the working people. Thank you.
Edward next.
So, as the questioner mentioned, $15 an hour is not a living wage for people. It's not enough to raise a family on, put students through college on. It's not enough. $15 an hour we're only going to get higher wages when the working class as a whole fights for them. And maybe there's this whole debate, $13 an hour, $15 an hour. Maybe we can get that out of the Democrats. What we need to do to get higher wages is make a big fight over it. And that's the only way that's going to happen. It's not going to come from one politician. It's certainly not going to come from the Chicago Democratic Party, because that's not the interest they serve.
I think it's vital that we have families in our neighborhoods, right? I think in Pilsen, one of the big problems that we have is a lot of families have left the neighborhood. The reason why, poverty, right? If we paid our families, at the minimum wage that currently is at, that is not enough to keep up with the living costs. You talk to the average family in Pilsen, they will tell you that they're not making ends meet. So what that means is that we have to work 2-3 jobs to just make ends meet. The other part that we don't talk about, as an immigrant, I feel that in my own skin, right? A lot of immigrants, we don't even get the minimum wage. So by increasing the minimum wage to $15 an hour, we're ensuring that perhaps, all immigrants and everybody is treated a little bit better. That we are creating those conditions. We're creating working environments where we are treating our workers fairly. That's very important. And it's very important because our workers are also family members, right? Our families depend on that. That is also linked to the education, right? The amount of time that they can spend at home with their children, the amount of time that we can have for our families. What is important is to know how to do it, right? Because we can talk about what is the right thing about how to do it. The city hall and the mayor are set on the idea to increase property taxes. Now you tell me, when you increase property taxes, that's going to affect our small businesses. When we increase the burden on our working class families, right? And all we have is just the corporations getting the subsidies, right? We cannot say, right, that we can make that possible. So what we said, we are today on the $15 minimum wage. We got to make sure that the corporations who are profiting and making tons of money pay the fair share. And what you got to do is to create that, because the excuse is that, well, we don't have enough. Well, we have to set the progressive taxation so that the people who make enough, they pay their fair share, and the corporations are also paying the fair share.
The next question will be for Roberto, and then we'll continue with the candidates to the right. Many of our student and community leaders hold undocumented status. How would you support the undocumented community and students?
Wow. I remember sitting in Congressman Gutierrez's office at 1310 West 18th Street on Troop and 18th, and the governor then was Blagojevich, and we were beating on him to pass House Bill 60, I believe it was, which gave us in-state tuition. Because before that, what we would do, I knew someone at Northeastern, and somehow we were able to just get them in. And it was like this underground railroad, but you can only do so much, you have to change the policy. And we figured out a way to get in there, and they got their student ID, and then from there everything kind of worked. I'm all for driver's licenses as well, because there's so much else that happens. Again, there's a social justice issue, but I don't think we're going to make the Republicans that we need understand that from that perspective. So I would like to argue the economic impact is enormous. If you want to save Social Security, you need to embrace the energy of the immigrant. If you want to unlock the cultural capital, give me your tired, your poor, right? Give me your immigrants. And whether it be the Irish or the Polish or the Germans or any of the community that now is around UIC, we're all going to benefit when we open those gates wide and say welcome. And so from a policy perspective, they pay their taxes, they sacrifice their children to the military, they open small businesses at a higher rate than anybody else. It's time to give them their due. Thank you. I think you're right.
No, didn't.
All right, or you're right. You're right.
Oh, me? Okay. Immigration.
State right.
I am one of the 3 conveners of the big immigration marches in 2006. I was elected to be the spokesperson of the March 10th movement, which it was a huge coalition of immigrant groups who put together the marches. I mean, I didn't organize the marches. I was one of the many, but I am known as one of the 3 conveners of the marches. We lost that battle. Why we lost it? We didn't lost it because of the Republican Party. We lost it because of the Democratic Party. And we have to say that. Yeah. Because the Democratic Party, instead of reacting in a more aggressive way, decided to stop the marches and let's just send everybody to the polls. And let's win a Democratic Party majority in Congress, and then immigration problems will be solved. Of course they are not. 9 years later, we are still in the same problem. What would I do in City Council? I would push first for a municipal ID. New York is giving municipal IDs, San Francisco is giving municipal IDs, and many people are going to need them, if they decide to apply for DACA and DAPA, which is just deferred deportation. That's what the executive policies of Obama are. But many people are going to need that ID. I would push for that ID. I would amend the ordinance Danny Solis passed in 2006 when the big marches were going on. He was very busy in City Hall passing an ordinance that has no punishment if you collaborate with immigration authorities. The ordinance says, do not collaborate with immigration. But if you break that ordinance, if you do collaborate with immigration, nothing happens because it says, the ordinance, you only have, as a citizen, you only have the resource to complain to the city. And then if you complain against the police board will review the complaint. which is total nonsense. So we need an effective no collaboration with immigration at all levels of city council. Two more things. Expand the New Americans office. I don't want an office for New Americans. I want an office for everybody. Last thing, I want everybody to vote. Up to 1920, in many states, you didn't need to be a citizen in order to vote. No representation, no taxation without representation. That's what I want in the city of Chicago. Thank you.
Well, when I was at UIC, a few years ago, the university decided to cut the scholarship money available for immigrant students. We thought that was, the wrong thing to do, so we fought. We see this as a fight, a continuous fight. Those are the fight, the quiet activism that goes on. A very, very brave activist here in UIC made headlines because she stood up also against some discriminatory expression on campus, Lulu Martinez. We've been in this fight, and we gotta make sure that we just put in here a little contribution. I don't think here are heroes, anybody who can stand for immigration. If anything, immigrants have been taken advantage of. We have been taken advantage from many people. That includes Republicans and Democrats, organizers and the like. So I think what is important is to say, what do we have for immigrants? What are we offering? We got to remember, Gutierrez right now back in RAM, right? And now, and that's the same person who passed legislation to deport more immigrants. Now, we know where they stand. We know what they've done. It's important what we're gonna do, right? As immigrants, we gotta make sure that we have educational opportunities for immigrants. I think Chicago, you can say, is almost like a safe haven for immigrants, right? As far as like deportations. However, how are we treating our schools? How are we treating the streets? Recently, you had two activists who were like detained because they were Latinos too. One of them Ecuadorian, by the way. So one of the things that we want to make sure is that we, support our institutions. UNO was another institution was taking advantage of immigrant families. So that's one of the things that we need to stop. And we need to stop so that we can provide educational opportunities. So the American dream is actually a reality. It's not just a facade or some kind of political discourse as the Democratic Party has been using it so far.
As a teacher, a personal frustration I've had, particularly in the last 2 years, we have undocumented students at Lindblom, and some will say, well, why should I work to get good grades? I'm not gonna be able to get money for college. Or conversely, we'll have some of the students who are, get the best grades they possibly can. They jump over every hurdle we set out for them, and then, they come back to me, and they're just working jobs. They're trying to work through community college, but they have no money. And they're coming from places with no money. And so, we need to have equal opportunity. I mean, first of all, college should be free, period. I mean, not just community college. UIC is a public institution in Chicago. This is like the only first world country that doesn't do that.
You go to Germany.
Okay, almost the only one. Sorry. But second, immigrants in the state now can get driver's licenses. I don't see why they shouldn't be able to vote. They should have I don't see, the ruling class wants to divide the working class. One of the ways they do that is by pitting immigrants against everybody else. And when they do that, they set it up so they can pay everybody else less. And, they get people to say, oh, it's immigrants taking jobs, and they set people against each other. And we should say everybody should have the same rights. Simple as that.
Thank you. Our next question will be about education, and the responses will start with Edward, moving to the right. So in 2014, 50 CPS schools closed due to lack of funding and attendance. In the 25th Ward, Jungman Elementary School lost $500,000 in public funding. And if elected, how will you work to improve the status of public education in Chicago?
Those schools did not close for lack of funding. Those schools closed because the priority was the bankers' interest first. They did not cut into the funding for the banks. They cut into the funding for the schools. So that says what our priority is. What I would do, obviously we've had big fights over funding cuts, over school closings. We haven't backed them off yet. It will take a bigger fight to stop them and push that back. But I have a lot of experience organizing that. I have a lot of experience supporting that. And I will support anybody who stands against school closings or against budget cuts.
Who's starting?
Next? Oh, thank you. I like the school board. Obviously, democracy is a good thing. We're dumb because we're the only clown that gets laughed at, right? We need to stop that immediately. It's offensive. When you see the contract sweetheart deals that are happening, not just the UNO deals, but like when Penny Pritzker became, when she got replaced by another oligarch, that person is getting fat at the public trough. That's a violation of a fiduciary responsibility, right? And so, as a fiduciary, which is what I do for a living, I'm offended by that. Break that TIF. You're taking that, speaking of fiduciary duties, you're taking that money and you're siphoning it away, right? If you just stopped TIFs, we'd have a lot of resources without even, taking a sledgehammer. Just stop the bleeding, right? By letting the TIF money flow. It's like the lifeblood of our schools. And then finally, it's time to start investing in human capital. And I know I'm a capitalist, and I know my socialist partners here are going to yell at me. I'm also a Democrat. But look, we all believe what we believe, right? But listen, just stop funding the slush fund, please. I promise you, Google does not need a tax break. All right? And you know what happens? The other thing that happens is displacement of people. Because when 200,000 African Americans left the city between the census and the one before that, that was policy. That wasn't the free market. That was a disinvestment in Inglewood, in Pullman. And so now the mayor wants.
Public housing, that's what there was.
That's right, amen. Right? And so you tear down the Ickies. Well, what are you gonna do to replace that? Public housing, just east of the ward. I'll shut up because I'm getting the hook here, but there's more to do, and more to talk about.
And indeed, one of the big problems is the thieves. Thanks to Byron, we learned the other day a whole lot about the thieves. He put together a very good workshop. Very good. And we learned a lot, stuff that we didn't know. For instance, that the calculation base of the thieves remains constant for the 13 years of life of the thief. Meaning the public schools, 23 years. So meaning the public schools don't get 1 cent in increments. Yeah, when you have a thief. In the 25th ward, we have 11 thieves. That's how much money the public schools are losing. It's not $500,000. It's millions of dollars. Yeah, if you consider the whole system of public education and the schools in Pilsen. So we have to get rid of the thieves. We have to put a moratorium on charters, definitely. We have to elect a school board, but elections don't solve problems. We elect a city council after all, and I don't think, we have solved our problems. Yeah, so we have to do recall mechanisms, supervisory mechanisms by the community to be able to put down anybody you put up in an election. We have to do that. And one thing I've been repeating, school buildings are there 24 hours a day. When I was in undergraduate school, my class schedule was 3 p.m. to 10 p.m. because the building is still there. Why don't we use the buildings all of the time? We could have tons of things and tons of activities around the schools, in the schools, not only for the students, after school programs and etc. and so on, but also for the parents, also for the community. So there's a whole lot of things we could do. One thing, last, Charter schools decide their own curriculum. That was the idea, the original idea after the local school councils. That's what we have to go back to. I'm not promoting charters. I'm saying the idea that every school could autonomously decide programs, study programs, has to be revised and maybe put in practice.
I think, I don't know that what I will do is what I have really been doing and would like to continue to do in City Hall. I've been part of the local school council at Youngman, this very school that was, received a $500,000 cut. So why do we make these kind of decisions, right? When we have $20 million to spend on a brand new school in downtown, when other schools, we see that they receive increases. When charter schools with criminal records keep expanding, right? So what we need to do is to make sure that the people have the voice. The people are the people making the decisions, not me, not anybody in this table. It's up to you, and that's what we did the T Forum. Not so that we are making decisions, is that we're empowering people, we're empowering the community. This is about community. This is not particular individual. There are no heroes, there's no heroes here. I think that what we need fundamentally is immediately an elected school board. When we have an appointed board that is not even willing to renegotiate some toxic swaps that cost our children $17 million a year, we have a problem. When we have a mayor who is not willing to even touch and already has committed most of TIF money, $1.7 billion, for infrastructure projects that benefit the most affluent communities. DePaul keeps, almost got a subsidy, to open a private stadium, while our schools were receiving cuts. So it's important that we call them, but we call them on what they're doing. So what we need to do is to get more democracy in our schools. We've got more democracy, more powers being empowered. So the other thing that we need to do immediately is to stop charter schools with criminal records to expand and privatize our educational system. We do that immediately and unconditionally.
Our next question is related to the environment, and Byron, you'll start with this question. So, environmental issues impact families and people of all generations. Air and water cleanliness are critical issues for the health of our community. What will you do to ensure that our children and families have access to a sustainable and healthy environment?
Organize. I mean, one of the things that is important, and organize with our neighbors or community, right? So in the Pilsen Alliance, one of the organizations that I have been volunteering, what we have done, and the group has done for longer than me, because I think that there's community residents have been there for a long, long time fighting to close the coal plants, right? Now we see the mayor even claiming, oh, I was there, I came and signed, right? So, an alderman that used to receive contributions for the coal plant, saying that he led the efforts to close the coal plants. So the cynicism of these people needs to be exposed, right? That's what this gentleman is not here tonight, right? So what we need to make sure is that we continue to fight those things. The coal plant's closed, so what are we promoting? Well, there are actually companies interested in coming with green energy, high technology, jobs that will be here to come for a long time, this will stay for a long time. And to negotiate, and with them, sit and say, well, what is the vision? How do you come and contribute to our community? So today, we're talking to them, and it's not the mayor, community organizations, and saying, we want access to the river, for instance. We want green spaces for children, right? We don't want another coal plant. Or Warsaw, what the incumbent is trying to do, put a metal shredder in front of a high school. Right? Why? Because he received political contributions to his campaign, $70,000, right? And to make sure that we keep regulating the existing businesses in our neighborhood. So that's what we've done. It's not that we're talking the talk, we're walking the walk, and we would like to continue doing that work. And that's what is the importance of empowering and getting more people involved. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, there was a referendum around that shredder, and the people spoke, and it was 85% said we don't want the shredder. So if people are saying that, then we shouldn't have it. And, people had to fight for a long time. Those coal plants finally closed, but we shouldn't we shouldn't have pollution in the neighborhood, and when we see it, people need to call that out. I don't know. Yeah, that's what I think.
just for the record, I love Postal Alliance. Like, they've been there forever, and they were carrying this fight for many, many years. I had the privilege of being with Postal Alliance, Perro, El Viejo, back in the day, I think it was 06, when we were lobbying for a $6 million tax to make that company pay for the externality of the asthma. We said, what is the cost to this community of asthma? We did the math. Kennedy School of Public Health, Kennedy School of Public Policy, Harvard, and we showed them the numbers. It started at a university like this. And then we had the math, and we said, this is what's happening. You better pay for that right now. And we're gonna do it by taxing sulfur dioxide. So, I should probably talk more about that. But we ended up convincing, of all people, Chairman of the Finance Committee Daley to impose a tax on that company that was giving Alderman Solis all that money. And that lobbyist, I remember, because he was in the room, he threatened me. And I'm like, really? Like, you're gonna kick my butt over, I didn't say that like that, but over lobbying for clean air? Anyway, so we've been doing this for a long time. It's not me, like you said, it's not no one person does anything, but a community coming together. We fought for the, and by the way, the community threw the incumbent into the runoff on that issue, and that's why he flip-flopped on Flisk, the coal plant. So you have the power, right? We're just here to try to echo that back and augment it. On that place, by the way, on that space, if I had my druthers, and someone who was chairman of zoning could have done it in a minute, I would have expanded the green space. I would have used the water taxis that Byron just mentioned. I would have brought in windmills, like they're doing in all the new industrial areas. There's 1,000 acres of industrial land between the people and the river. You know how much money we're losing? There's a water taxi that goes from downtown to Chinatown. Sorry, let it come to Pilsen. Thank you. Sorry.
I live in the United States because I have a background in occupational health and safety and industrial hygiene. And I came to educate Latino workers 27 years ago or something like that on their rights in the workplace on health and safety. So pollution, contamination, and toxic chemical substances and whatever, it's my original field, the field that brought me here. I was instrumental in OSHA, the Occupational Safety and Health Administration, opening up the first ever Spanish language hotline for workers to complain about workplace conditions. So I know what a company looks like inside and outside. And it's not the metal shredder. It's the other metal shredder too, which some people don't talk about, but it's not only Acme, it's also Sims, it's also Kramer. I was part of the first study ever in Pilsen on soil contamination of lead because of Kramer. Yeah, I was there and I reported it also, and the articles are there somewhere. Yeah, we have to do a whole lot. We have to bring EPA back into the community. We have to recertify or decertify what happens in all of the empty lots in Pilsen. Are they usable or they are not? Are they polluted? They should be declared superfunds or not. We have to do all that, and I mean, from basic things people need to know. You can't cultivate lettuce in Pilsen because you will poison yourself, period. So we have to do a whole lot on environment in the area of the whole district. Pilsen is one of the most contaminated areas in the whole county. Thank you.
The next question is on pensions for city workers, and we'll start with Edward and move to your rights. So the question is, what do you see as a potential stopgate measures for the city's pensions crisis, and how do you see the current situation as affecting members of this ward? Starting with Ed.
Well, I'll say first, pension, as a public worker and knowing other public workers, we worked for that money. Public workers who have pensions worked for that money. They put their lives into that work of public service They didn't get paid big money for the most part, and they earned that. And so I am totally against, 100% against any imposition on any pension. Second, there is money in the city, so if we need to why are the pensions underfunded? Because there have been between 10 and 15 years of pension holidays. When times were good, the politicians said, oh, let's spend that money somewhere else. And when times are bad, they said, oh, we don't have any money, so we can't put it in the pension. And now it's sort of like me going to my landlord saying, I don't have the money for the rent this month, can you lower my rent? It's like they never put it that way, but they always talk about that way for us. So as far as if they say they don't have the money, well, there's plenty of sources. We have our TIF funds that we've talked about. Break that open, put that back. Those are diverting money away from public sources anyway. Second, the LaSalle Street companies make billions in profits. They profit from this city and from this society, and they should have to support it with tax money. So I support a LaSalle Street tax. The wealthy have money, tax them. Progressive taxation, estate tax, whatever. Do whatever you need to do to fund what we need. That's it.
I said in my sometimes questionnaire, a promise is a promise, a pension is a promise. There's really nothing to talk about. You're going to pay those first responders, police officers, nurses, firefighters, what we promised them, and you're not going to stack a deck now that they're, on fixed income, right? What my colleague was talking about, stealing wages. When you increase the healthcare costs because you are, it's a one-off, right? You're immediately stealing from that retiree, and whether it be a teacher or a nurse, the people that keep our city alive, right? We have to honor that promise, and if we don't do that, our city will fail because good people will stop doing that great work that we need to do. Now, taxes are going up. Property taxes are going up. I suggested we start with property taxes at 9%. I'm the first guy you ever heard say, I want to raise your taxes. Sorry. But you need to, because there's no other way to do the math. And I believe in math. That's what I do. If I had my druthers today, we would crack the TIF open, just to echo Ed here, and we would start honoring our first responders, not with fancy schmancy, ceremony, but just give them what we owe them. And if we can do that, the best and brightest will continue to try to seek to serve, and our city will be better off.
I indeed work on stolen wages, and I would work definitely against stolen pensions, because that's what they are doing. They are stealing the money they are supposed to give you, in a long time from now. They are stealing it already. That's pension theft. It is a contract. It is a legal obligation. And, well, what they want to do is to renegotiate the contract. I don't think we should. I think full pensions have to be paid. But how do you do that? First, the Robin Hood taxes. Robin Hood didn't steal from the poor. These guys do want to steal from the poor. No, let's increase the taxes, but not for everybody. Why don't we set a limit? Let's double the tax on every property in the city of Chicago that is over $1 million. Yeah, why not? There are houses, 3, 4, 5, 6, $18 million houses in the city of Chicago. If you're gonna pay $19 million in a house, you might as well pay 20 millions, 1 more million. Why not? But let's not tax the poor guy, who for the effect of the bubble, is still paying $100,000 for a house that is, valued in $50,000, and he still owes $80,000 over that house. I mean, let's not do that. Let's not tax the workers from Cicero who live in Cicero because they went to live in Cicero because it's cheaper, and then they come to work in the city of Chicago. I completely oppose the ridiculous notion that we should tax people who live outside of the city of Chicago and live inside and work inside the city of Chicago, unless they earn $250,000 and above. Let's tax them. Yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah. Yeah, but if you earn less than that and you live in Cicero, no way, no tax increases for you. One more thing, stop privatizing. The city lost the base, the taxation base, because started privatizing so many jobs and firing so many workers. If you keep firing people who pay to the pension fund, how do you expect to pay your obligations to the pension fund? So stop privatizing, stop firing people, rehire, and increase your taxable base.
We can wrap that up. Thank you.
I think that we heard many times that, we can see how society, the shape of our society, by seeing how we treat our elderly, how we treat our kids. In Chicago, we decided to close 50 schools, and we are considering take away the pensions of the seniors, the pensions of the people who have worked for years, so that, we have the city that we can live on. I think we gotta honor our promises. I think that's one of the things that our capitalists and neoliberal friends always repeat, right? Well, it's inevitable. We have to do it, right? But it seems, a coincidence that always the crisis always falls into working class families, on the poor. So what we got to make sure is that here, if there are sacrifices, the sacrifices are on everyone, especially those who have been profiting, who have been benefiting from the crisis. So what we got to make sure is that, we honor those pensions because they earn those pensions. We got to make sure that those people who are profiting from the crisis, you got to remember that people who are actually profiting from the situation we're in, we got to make sure that those people pay the fair share. The progressive taxation is just fair. This is not a favor for us. We got to make sure that our families are treated fairly, and that's, I think, our priority today. The property taxes, I completely disagree. I think that, how can we put another burden on our families when we know that there are options out there? We know that the money is out there. We live in a city where the average income is $60,000 a year per person. So how can we say, that we cannot do that we cannot have schools for children, that we have to take away pensions? We should not accept that. We should fight that.
The next question will be on public safety and police, and we'll begin with Roberto, and we'll be moving to your right. The question is, in the city of Chicago, 92% of taser uses from police involved a Black or Latino target between 2009 and 2011. 49 of these individuals were youth under 16. Between 2002 and 2004, Chicago residents filed 10,148 complaints against the Chicago Police Department. Only 124 were sustained. How will you work to better community and police relations, keeping our streets safe and our police accountable? Starting with Roberto.
Thank you. Man, it's hard being a police officer. I have a lot of good friends of mine that I went to grade school with. I've known all my life that are police officers, and I love cops. And first, let me just say thank you if you're the police. We're not trying to beat you up in the public arena. It's easy to beat up on the police officer. But the police officer is being put in a really, really tough position where there are certain numbers that he or she needs to meet, or you're not going to get promoted unless you're married because you know somebody. The police officer is being told, we might pay you, we might not pay you. And go out there and put yourself in harm's way for us. And so the solution that I have is, first of all, start remembering what they do. And 90% of the encounters aren't a taser, right? Those are the ones that, the horrible ones, right? The Gardners, the Fergusons, those we remember. I've had plenty of times when I was driving Bob Brown, and I remember being uncomfortable. Right here, getting pulled over, going to get my holy sauce at Mass 1 Halstead. It was a little late. I was coming from a party. And so, but the solution is, it starts with training. So I'm going to get a little technical, but when you go to the academy, you learn how to do really simple stuff. It's not to get into the field that the FTO, the field training officer, has got you, and they're talking about real policing. I mean, it's like the army, right? You go to boot camp, it does not make you a soldier. You have to go do the job for a while, years. And the training is lacking. The FTO, the field training officer, is trying to be a lawyer, a social worker, a teacher, a crisis manager, a psychologist. And by the way, San Antonio has an amazing program where it gives all of its police officers the tools to recognize a psychological incident. Yeah, sorry. We don't do that here. And there's crises calls every day to 911, and the police officers haven't been equipped. So when you don't have the right tool, because you haven't been trained, you do the most non-lethal thing you can, and unfortunately sometimes it's a taser. But if you support the policeman, policewoman, I think you'll have a better policing experience. I could say more, but we're out of time. I'm sorry. No love for the cops? Come on.
I'll tell you what the police do. The police spend $49 million settling lawsuits for abuse of power and violence against the city of Chicago. That's what the city of Chicago had to pay 2 years ago, $49 million in a single year for officers who shot people, who kicked people, who kicked people, who arrested people falsely, etc., etc., etc. Yeah, I think in the prevalent system of incarceration, we don't need more police. Not 1,000 like Chuy Garcia says, not 500, not 300, and not 100, because police are there just arresting people because you are young, because you are poor, because you are Latino or black. That's what the police are doing. And excuse you me, but more police in the street means more criminalization, more people ending up in jails for crimes they did not commit, but they plea bargained after they got arrested. So yes, okay, I'll say I'm innocent. Okay, so you only go to jail for 1.3 years instead of going to jail for 5 years. That's the system we are in. And more cops, less cops is not going to do it. Tasers or no tasers, not going to do it. Police body cameras are not going to do it. We have to review the whole system and the whole structure of the police department. I don't think we need more police in the street. The crimes we have in the whole 25th district are crimes of opportunity, petty crimes, less than $300. We don't need police to address in that situation. What we need is opportunities for people, is better wages, better jobs, and people, kids in school for longer and longer and longer hours. Not only studying, but getting into all kind of programs. Yeah, the last year, the city of Chicago paid for a whole bunch of summer jobs. The crime index reduced like in 60%. That's what we need.
I think we deal with two situations here. I think like if you ask many families, and we gotta remember, if you ask the community, right? There's the immediacy of you want to feel safe. So pitching the police against the community, I don't think that's the solution. I think that's part of the problem. There's a lot of distrust between the community. There's a lot of distrust between the policemen. Why? If you go to a lot of African American communities, Latino communities, the number of unsolved crimes is ridiculous. 70% of the crimes are not solved. We have a police station on Blue Island and Racine that almost does not take the calls when there's problems in the African American community. So those are the real issues right there that we have. You know, the criminalization of our youth, when our jails have become businesses. So we have a pipeline from school to prison. You know, we need to find real solutions. I think the solution is not to increase, you know, the number of policemen so that we just make sure, you know, we just increase the problem. We gotta make sure that we have real partnerships. I think a real solution is to have civil oversight, right? So we have a good partnership when we actually working as a community, right? Police department and community members are working as a community, and we actually getting things done. It is important that long term, that we see that the solution is not brutality, the police, not more repression, not criminalizing our own youth. The solution is, as we said, you know, opportunities. Make sure that our schools are affordable for our own kids. Charter schools. Look at the rejection rate of charter schools. We need, we put in more youth people. 1 out of 2 high school students don't even graduate from high school. How is that acceptable in a society with so many resources? We have communities, we cannot even use their own parks next door because of the racist society that we're creating, the segregated societies that we're creating. So what we want to make sure is that we also invest long term. If we have youth programs, if we invest in our education, we get opportunities, we take our kids and we keep them safe. And I think that we have to do both, long term and short term. Thank you.
So I'm certain there's been, the topic of police brutality has been in the media much lately. Young people have been protesting against police brutality in a very public way, because of Eric Garner, because in Ferguson. I'm certainly in solidarity with that. We had a substantial student walkout at Lindblom about 6 weeks ago. I was in solidarity. I stood with them on that. But yeah, the problem is, we live in a racist society and people don't have what they need. And that falls disproportionately on Black and Latino communities. And so you have crime, petty or worse. And the policing is not an easy job. We have a society that creates criminals, and yes, we're not going to get rid of that by having more police. You have to address entrenched poverty. You have to, only by addressing that can you even begin to address the entrenched gangs you have here. And so I think as long as policing devastated communities are gonna be sharply, set against them. And you're gonna have this stuff unless we really make a society that's more fair and gives opportunities, real opportunities. Yes, youth programs would be good. That would go a little bit of the way, but people need a future. People need a place in the society. And this society is not offering that to people at all.
All right, thank you everyone for your responses to those questions. Now we're going to open the floor up to the audience for questions. And I just want to remind all the candidates that your responses are limited to 1 minute apiece. At 30 seconds, Jamie will raise her hand and you'll get the purple folder at 1 minute again. Are there any questions? Jeff,
I think you were first, sir. Yeah.
My name is Salih Hamdan. I'm a PhD and doctoral student in physics here at UIC. I heard lots of great things from each of the candidates, but one question that kept going back to me is, what gets lost? I mean, you guys see the community, you guys organize the community in public health, you are organizing workers, immigrants, teacher. What gets lost as you climb up the government ladder? I mean, where does our voices here in the community get lost? Why in the last 30 years wages have stagnated, workers' rights have diminished? Why is all of this happening when you guys, build up from? Is it the centralization?
Can I start?
Before, I just want to repeat the question for everyone. The question is, where along the way are the people's voices lost? And we're going to just continue from where we were before. So Jorge, you'll start.
In the structure, anyone who makes campaign promises is lying, really. Because no, we cannot stop thieves. No, we cannot decide a moratorium on charter schools. No, we cannot elect a Chicago public school board. No, an alderman cannot do that. You need a whole city council to change the rules that say how those things are done. The rules that say that the mayor is the only one who controls the thief, period. That's it. So any promise you hear here, it would be a lie, because no, the structure does not allow you to do that. We live in a one-party dictatorship, the Democratic Party dictatorship in the city of Chicago for over 50 years, and they have set the rules so they can do exactly what they do now. And it's going to be very difficult to change that.
Yep. I think one big issue that we have is big money to politics. We have a huge issue when people can buy their seat. When you have like an incumbent in our case, people like the people who play, the very same people who don't play by the rules, those are the people making the decisions. And then the people who can make a difference, completely alienated from the political system. Then we have a very dysfunctional system. When you have a president, right, who makes a promise and does not deliver, right? Then how can we ask people, right? When we have a president and telling you, well, we're going to empower African American communities, we're going to empower minorities, and then we see the complete opposite, right? That disengages. So what I think is important, and the solution to that is to keep honor. When we promise people papers for everybody, that actually, when we don't fulfill those promises, we disengage people. We got to make sure that we honor our promises. We do things that we can do, accomplishing, and know that we're just a little part of we're just a little part. This election is a local election. It's a non-partisan election. So we got to make sure is that we think in the things that we can accomplish locally so that we engage more people.
I think to address the questions, why are people's voices lost? Why are wages going down? I mean, we live in a class society. The business class has a big interest in wages going down. If people haven't been fighting that for as long as I've been alive, and so wages have gone down. The only way we're gonna get wages to go up, the only way we're gonna get our voices heard is if people are making a fight big enough for people to hear it. We had a strike in 2012, you may have heard of it, and people heard it. People heard us. We didn't get what we needed. All we got was people to hear us. But that's the kind of thing we need.
So I think it's two things. One, Citizens United just kills democracy. You got to get rid of that. But right? Love, right? So, no, really. So, any pre-law people out there, make that your life, please. Citizens United kills us because corporations are not people, right? They don't get the same rights as people. You can't choke a corporation to death. They don't have bodies to kick, right? Souls to condemn. Corporations are just not people, And so when they are allowed to participate at that disadvantage, and they have a time frame that is generational, right? Maybe with our families, we can hope for the seventh generation to do well, but they've got this executive board that's going to insularly guarantee that for themselves, and they're going to throw money into those campaigns. My opponent has outraised me 200 to 1. My socialist friend has outraised me 8 to 1.
Thanks to you.
There is a voice, right? But the other part isn't just the money. It's the fact that we become comfortable, and we have to become uncomfortable, and we have to make the people that are uncomfortable comfortable. If that made sense. Thank you.
Yeah. My name's Ross, and I'm an activist, and I was watching the demolition of Whittier Fieldhouse.
Yeah, I was there. You were there.
And so I'm thinking about two questions. One is, what do you see for this community? What's the meaning of the public libraries? We have a situation right now where political leaders like Rahm Emanuel and Jeb Bush, they don't seem to think that these public libraries are very important for the community, and don't think that more funding will help the schooling. So, what are they seeing at the public libraries? And the other one is both all the candidates, they talked eloquently about both the closing of schools and the keeping open of the landmines. I'm wondering if these are separate, or sorry, not the landmines, the coal mines. The
Okay.
open of the coal mines.
Okay.
The coal mines. Are these entirely separate phenomena, or do you see them as somehow related?
To repeat the question, what is the significance of public libraries, and do you see the keeping open of schools and coal mines as separate or together?
And I think, Rudy Lozano Library is always packed. I've seen some of the people in this room there. It's sort of insane to curtail the hours there the way Emmanuel has done. And the significance is there's sort of community center. There's meetings there. People can get educated. People go there to look for work. And it doesn't cost that. It's jobs to keep it open. It gets other people jobs to keep it open. They have things to keep kids off the street. They have things to enrich kids' lives, why aren't we keeping them open? We have the money to do that. That's not even asking that much, especially compared to how much they're feeding to corporations through the TIFs, how much they're feeding to the banks, which already got enormous bailouts from the feds, how much they're paying just for the interest that they're giving to them every year. You know, I don't know, they're very significant, and we should have them open, and have them open all the time and every day of the week.
I think that absolutely there's a correlation with that. Well, and I remember, I think, you know, with some of us, we've seen, you know, I remember Ed, when I called, you know, said, well, they're demolishing the La Casita, right? It was in the middle of the night, right? On a Friday night when nobody's watching, right? It is outrageous that we allowed to demolish the library, you know, for some fields that are going to benefit children in private school. That's what's really happening. So yes, it is actually very, very significant what's happening, right? The disempowerment of the communities. We don't have a voice, and what we see is beyond what we want to see, right? The coal plants closing, right? It seems like someone who's not in this room has not learned the lesson, right? That we don't want coal plants, right? He used to get money from the coal plants, he let him operate until the very end. Now he receives money from the metal shredder, he lets him open. So someone is not learning the lesson and someone is making it happening, so let's hold them accountable. That's what we need to do, and we got to do it together.
So, one of us up here is going to win this. Danny Solis is not going to win. Let's start with that. And it really, I mean, we have different views, but it's the same idea. The fact, I'm going to go back to the economy a bit. The fact that you're taking away the one resource where I can look for a job, where I can stay warm for 5 minutes, where the homeless, sometimes there's nowhere else to take care of themselves because the park's already kicking them out. Those libraries are instrumental to the survival of the poor. I learned how to play chess there. That helped me a lot, you know? It helped me in this campaign. I'm not doing so well yet, but we're getting there, we're getting there. But the thing is, you have to give the people the knowledge, and what do you do that, right? Not everybody has money for tuition. And the library is the one place, it's almost like the great equalizer. And I wasn't arrested. That's not my thing, necessarily.
It's my thing.
But I did carry the banner. I carried the banner all the way down 18th Street, down Ashland, down Cermak, or the other way around, actually. And it was fun. And, you know, I'm not going to forget that. And I'll shut up now. Sorry. Thanks. And the police station. That should be the library. Sorry.
The Whittier lot is not going to be any kind of fields for any private school. The Whittier lot already has a play lot, a $500,000 worth play lot. That's what is there. Ram Emanuel and Danny Solis inaugurated it, 7 months ago, and we were yelling and screaming right there with a banner, and you know, Ram Emanuel had to talk to the press with a banner behind him that said, "Don't close our schools." We were there. How would you like a library twice the size of the Rudy Lozano Library? It's been built in this district. Mm-hmm. It's been built in Chinatown, of course, which is, you know, my here Danny Solis friend, is the preference of Danny Solis, you know, to benefit Chinatown. It's a huge 2-floor building, that is going to have probably twice as many possibilities as the Rudy Lozano. But it's not only about buildings. It's about how many programs you have in the library to educate kids. It's not about open the door and come in and do whatever you find interesting to do. It's about having organized programs for the kids, for the adults, and for everybody all of the time.
I think I saw the gentleman.
So I'm really into physics education in high school. So public schooling has gotten a beating. So the trend has been to privatize, to open up charters, selective enrollment schools. and basically bust people out. And now I'm not naive. I know the alderman does not have power to make changes like that, like Jorge was saying. But I think I'm going to vote on what your visions are. So I want to see if privatization has a role in education. I think next year Pearson will decide which teachers are eligible from the universities to be able to teach in CPS, and they're going to charge each teaching candidate $350. They're going to pay a teacher to grade their application $75, so there's a tiny profit to be made. So does privatization have a role in education?
So to repeat the question, it's what is the role of privatization in education? And we're going to start with Byron.
No, sir. I think education is a human right, right? I think that, what we see, with the privatization of the schools, we see the more vulnerable kids, the poorest kids with less opportunities. Right? We talk about choice, right? But what choice do have those kids whose schools being closed, but to cross across, often dangerous lines that they're supposed to, they're promised to be safe. So I think that privatization does not have a place in education, as they don't have a place for the parking spots either, right? We see the privatization doesn't work, right? If anything, we learn, right, that it's not in the best interest of the kids. It's in the best interest of those who are actually collecting the money, right? So I think that public institutions are public. Charter schools are publicly funded. 95% of it is public funds. So why are they privately run? Why that no one is accountable? When the money disappears, nobody's accountable. Because that's when you face with privatization, right? Charter schools don't have local school councils. Where's the voice of parents? Where's the voice of students and teachers? So, that's what I think that's not a good idea. Mm-hmm.
I'll tell you the role of privatization in education. It's to get money out of the schools and hand it to the companies. Hand it to the Aramark. So at our school at Lindblom, we've been, not the only school, but we've made a lot of noise about this Aramark contract. Aramark gets $450 million basically to lay off a third of our janitors and hire some middle management to take over a job that was already being done by the building engineers. Privatization is used to have charter schools so they can funnel money to Turkish political organizations or their friends' companies. It's used in all sorts of ways. They're not making money on their own because people don't have it, so they're trying to take our school money. That's the role of privatization. Thank you.
Everything is regulated. Everything. I don't care who you are, what you do, right? The Securities and Exchange Commission is got UNO under the microscope because of securities fraud. And that might not have happened if we had a public voice there, right? But you take hundreds of millions of taxpayer dollars, you give it to somebody, say, we'll just trust him, right? Because you're a corporation, you can be more efficient. And then somebody's cousin gets a contract. That's not appropriate. The toxic swaps are offensive, right? The non-elected school board member, going back to that point, that takes her private interest and puts it over the public interest. So to answer your question directly, in my mind, education is a public good. And it should therefore be the most transparent thing in the world because it belongs to all of us. Our collective future depends on nothing more than that being efficient. I'll be quiet, thanks.
So is that privatization or no?
That's no privatization.
Oh, no privatization.
Yeah. Because I can't talk, I'll see more later.
Privatization is the trend to get a cheaper worker and more profits out of something. I think public education, forget about a human right. It should be a public service. Period. Public service and a free public service all the way through the university. Yeah, there are countries who do that, and they have the same economic problems the United States has. Well, a lot less. Some of them, they don't send people to kill other people the other side of the world, and they don't spend that much money in wars. But privatization is just that, and we have to stop it because it hurts. It reduces salary and everything else. It's not only the charter, it's not only the private, it's the jobs you lose, janitorial jobs, food services for public schools, transportation services for public schools, all of that you lose, is just deepening the crisis of education. So no privatization whatsoever, and reverse the trend.
No profit motive.
Hi, I believe there are more than 50 special service area tax districts in the city of Chicago, and more than 600 in the state of Illinois. It's kind of a fluky law. In my more than 40 years in Pilsen, I have never seen more people with different interests stick together, side by side, people that didn't necessarily ever want to talk to each other, fighting against an SSA in Pilsen. And now there's a lot of talk about one coming up in Chinatown. How do you feel about SSAs?
So we're gonna start with Jorge, then go around.
Same thing as the thief. It's just another trap. Let's see how we can make money out of something. That's it. I mean, it's incredible to observe the history of the economic bubble, the housing bubble, which was created on the assumption of, okay, we have a whole lot of people that paid completely their houses, and that's money that is sitting right there and is not being productive. So we will offer you, a new loan over your house, and then you will get to spend that money, send your kid to the university, and today the kid is out of the university, he doesn't have a job, and you don't have a house, and that's exactly all of these schemes, and that goes to figure even in trade agreements, international trade agreements. It's just imagining how else can we make another dollar for the corporations, and how the city can benefit us while we make that dollar. That's it.
My turn?
I think he's.
Okay. What was the question again?
SSAs are for or against.
And I'm not repeating because SSA is something we've been working on, right? Because maybe you have not heard about SSA, right? Al, in fact, helped us, eliminate, make sure that didn't go forward in Pilsen, but it's going forward in Chinatown, right? When they have the new vision of Chinatown now, and a lot of residents are not even informed about this. So I think one of the things that we need to make sure is transparency, right? How is this going to really operate? We have an incumbent right now doesn't even know how to operate at one point, his own budget. There's money missing from his own budget. So how do we expect for him to really understand how these financial instruments are operating? What I assure you, right, that these instruments are just benefiting the people who already have a lot of money, the big businesses. The small businesses who close down in Pilsen, those are the ones who are subsidizing the new businesses who come with big capital. How is that fair? So, we're saying, and in Chinatown, as much as, some people are, seeing the marketing, we got to oppose those kind of fees, those extra fees. That's not good to those small businesses. It's not beneficial for the community.
I don't have a lot to add on that. From what I understand of SSAs, they favor bigger businesses over smaller ones, that it's an attempt to gentrify the community. I'm against it.
So, real quick, I don't really tell a lot of people ask questions. If you basic Alinsky, right? Organize money, organize power, and SSA is a way to organize money. And who organizes the money? The people that have the board access. So it's an undemocratic divestment. It's really separating money into a private little coterie that's going to be appointed and controlled by that elected official. So it's undemocratic, and it's driven by a profit motive, not a service motive. So therefore, no.
And this is the last question. If you want to talk to candidates afterwards, you can please feel free to do so as long as they're here.
It's an important question.
We actually
It's a very important question.
The all important question.
Ladies first.
Well, all the questions before have been made by men, so I'm gonna just.
Yes.
Yes.
I live in Pilsen. I've lived there for a number of years now. Something I've noticed in the neighborhood that I love is there are a lot of vacant lots, vacant houses, and vacant storefronts.
Yeah.
What would you as aldermen do with those properties, and how would you fund it?
So we're going to start with Roberto, and then move to the right.
Great. The first thing I would do is I would take the city colleges, which is right next door, right, 2800 Southwestern, not far from Pilsen, and I would do like a job fair, right? And let's have people come and bring your ideas, and let's just vote on it. And who gets to decide? Whoever shows up, right? So we're gonna invite everybody, say please come, we have these ideas. We're gonna break that TIF, and this is gonna be your seed money. Now we're gonna invest in you. I'll give you a perfect example, and I've done this before. La Casa del Pueblo, a beautiful, beautiful gem in our community. That lady doesn't own her building. For 50 years she's been working there, right? So when El Nopal shut down, she needed a microloan, right? $15,000 to buy equipment. It's nothing for the beautiful, culturally conscious, amazing factory of tamale delicious dumpling love that would be created. I'm all about it. And it's gonna generate jobs, a tax base, but you have to start somewhere. So those small business owners, they don't have MBAs, right? Put them through a small incubator. I think I'm getting toasted up. Small incubator, I've done this. This was my job as the director of community development at city colleges a couple of years ago. And when I worked at 18th Street Development Corporation. So I've got tons of these things, and whoever wins, you gotta do that. Thank you.
Subsidize, subsidize, subsidize. There are millions of dollars really available that you can use. Subsidize. 6 out of 13 commercial offices, commercial spaces on Blue Island by Danny Solis, my friend here, Danny Solis' office are empty.
Yeah.
Well, subsidize 6 months of rent. Subsidize 6 months of salary for one of their workers, as long as they pay decent wages, as long as they don't steal wages, as long as such and such and such. I mean, yeah, I will help you, but there are conditions for doing that. And create community enterprises. Forget about socialism for a second. Yeah. Condominium malls where the person selling doesn't have to rent but owns part of the mall, not the big Target, $5 million for Target, $5 million for Home Depot. That's what my friend here has given. No, you know, for local small companies. That's it.
That's me? Okay. Well, we want to see, you know, I tell you what, definitely we want to see with the need for a new vision, right? We don't want to see more empty lots where the incumbent or the city gives $1 subsidy, $1 until 2018 to give it to a Wicker Park club that plays bocce there, right? But we don't want to see that, right? What we want to see, right, is fulfill the needs of the community. There are $134 million in TIF money that were collected in the community. Those funds should be operated and invested in the community. You know, there are 72 vacant lots, right? There's a lot of needs. Small businesses crave for like some kind of space for parking, for fields, for youth center, but what we need definitely is that kind of question. And someone over here who answers it, right? So we want to make sure, you know, is that those kind of voices, that participatory budget is critical. I think that those questions and people like this are going to make the difference.
I mean, I think if there are vacant buildings, there's people that could use those. There's, you know, we have people doubled up in apartments. We have people who need places to live. I mean, they should be able to move into them, and we should use public money to fix them up. It's been, you know, across from Lindblom, when I started working there, at first I'd heard all this about Inglewood, it's bad. And it looked okay compared to what I'd heard. But then, you know, a few years later, this crisis hit, and now the whole block is like Swiss cheese, where you can see through from the school to the other side of the block on the next street. So, you know, why aren't we using these buildings? We should use them for what, you know, we have meetings and say, what do we want to do with them?
Eminent domain, exercise eminent domain.
I'd like to thank everyone for coming today. And our candidates, I'm sorry, sir, we actually do not have more time here.
You don't make more time.
Thank you so much for coming.